For even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream. It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up, live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day on the red hills of Georgia, sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood.
Hey everybody, welcome back. Hello children, welcome back to your expat escapologists. We are here beaming out on Al Gore's interwebs, as I keep saying. I don't know why I'm going to keep saying that.
Keep saying it.
As Al Gore's interwebs. And all around the world from downtown Barcelona, I'm here. Lucas, the club with Lucas is here on The Way Shit Works Now. I'm not
Bobby from the Bronx is back today. The Way Shit Works Now is back in studio. Finally.
Okay.
Finally, we've returned to our home away from home.
Because
a couple months.
My brother was in the States back in July before the ish really hit the fan. Okay. Yeah. And then I was in cat love land for the month of August. Oh my God.
You're being a good parent. You're being a very good parent.
I'm a good damn nurse too. I even injected this little mother effer. Okay, but that's another thing because we're not alone here in the studio. Your newbie expat go-to podcast is here with none other than Mr. Mark Mullen. Thank you so much, Captain, for being here.
Yes.
Thank you. Now, Turnout Nation is his permanent foundation, and that's what he's actually repping today. We're going to talk a little bit about what that means as well, because
it's critical. We're here talking about how expats can make a difference in the dumpster fire that is the United States, and we've put this sort of Hitchhiker's Guide to Saving American Democracy together, and Mark's entirely unique and interesting ideas are something that our audience needs to hear and everyone needs to hear, especially expats, U.S. estadounidense living abroad. Mm-hmm. And I can't wait to go over his story, figure it out, and apply these types of lessons to taking back democracy. So, Mark, please introduce yourself and tell us a little about yourself.
So I am. Thank you very much for having me on here. I'm originally from Dallas, Texas. Went to
born in Texas.
No way. Mm-hmm. Went to college in the Northeast, and then ended up basically outside of the United States for about 25 years in a bunch of different places, in Malawi, in East Africa, Palestine, Albania, UK, but for 15 years in the Republic of Georgia. The one next to Chechnya, not the one next to Alabama. And yeah, I say the Republic of Georgia, and sometimes people are like, "Oh yeah, they're so independent-minded down there." I'm like, no. I mean, really, the Republic of Georgia,
right? Not the Atlanta Braves.
Not the Atlanta Braves, right? And so, and most of that time, I started out working for a group called the National Democratic Institute that sort of promoted democracy abroad. So I've done a lot of civic organizing internationally. And then around 2013, I moved to San Francisco. And in 2016, looking at that election, I was really surprised by how much discussion went into how the voters voted and why, and how little conversation went to what seemed to me to be a statistically more important question of who wasn't voting, why they weren't voting, and how do we get them to vote. And so I talked to a bunch of people who'd been eligible but had not voted, and found out something interesting, which is the reason that they didn't vote, which, the sort of, in psychology, the clinical term for that is they didn't get their shit together.
Sure.
And it seemed a little overwhelming and complicated. Maybe they didn't vote very much or hadn't before or whatever. They didn't, weren't the type to have voted with their parents or whatever. And so, they all agreed that if a friend helped them and gave them the necessary information, and importantly, would know if they voted, then they'd vote. Mm-hmm. So in that kind of Bay Area way, I said that's a solvable problem, and so we built Turnout Nation.
One of the things that we learned through Annie specifically, shout out Lady Annie Grohl,
she's
from
the
Gender
best.
Abroad, is that Just under 10% of the nearly 16 million of us that are outside of the country, that's expats, immigrants, however you want to call it now, we're refugees, Lord mercy. But less than 10% voted in the last 2024 elections. And it was just over 7% in the 2022 midterm elections. Of the, again, 16 million of us out there. So when those types of statistics get thrown about, when we know that nearly 91 million people did not vote in the last election, especially coming from a history background, this is infuriating looking at what is happening. So one of the things that Turnout Nation is focusing their energy on is making this change. Now, one of the things that we were talking about right before the show was with somebody else who's in Colombia who wants to go back for some politics. And I think this idea could be everywhere. Can we talk about what you want to do with this? With
More
Turnout
importantly,
Nation?
what makes Turnout Nation unique as opposed to phone banking
question.
or canvassing?
Certo.
Well, two things. I mean, I'll explain it first, and then I'll talk about at the end, like where we hope to go, what the vision for it is, and the method could work anywhere where it is available to know if people have voted or not. And in the United States, that is more or less public information. Other countries less so, or it's more complicated. But there are many countries in which that's public information. In terms of what makes us unique, at heart, it's just friends helping friends to vote. But it's quite structured. So the first thing is we're all volunteers. We're zero budget. We have no staff. And that, for quite a while, we, chased funding and got funding, and, we're a 501c3 nonprofit. What I found was that, within the sort of, the donor world and those who care about democracy and want to fund its improvement, they make a bunch of money available around September of an even year for a November even year election.
Right, of course.
For some what they call intervention that can be tested and then scaled. And the rest of the year, everybody sort of contemplates their navel and does their strategy and does nothing. And it's an incredibly destructive and ineffective, as we see, model. So in our case, we're all volunteer, and that clarifies things. It means that we're trying to get people to volunteer. We're all volunteers trying to get people to do that. And
Care factor.
You deal with that in Dems Abroad too.
Yeah, for sure. And I think we tend to see that, we're looking for, what we call voting captains, what we promulgate as a method called the captain method, which is just a voting captain gets 10 friends to vote. It takes a while to match into the voter file. That's a process that can take between 15 and 45 minutes. But once you've done that, it's really just, finding out your friend's plan to vote and helping them out and, whatever. It's really crazily easy. We also work with organizers who are people who recruit captains, say 5 to 20 or so from their volleyball team or their book club or their sorority or their neighborhood or the Burger King they work at or whatever. Just any community that they're a part of, and that takes a little bit more effort because you're sort of motivating them and getting them to do that. But all those people are volunteers.
And it's accountability, right? Like
for sure, that's what it's based on. That you're getting your friends to vote, but you'll know whether they voted or not. And so then after the election, the idea is that this is a long-term relationship, and we want them to vote in every election, including primaries and ballot initiatives and microscopic school board elections and everything else.
Absolutely.
And so there's no reason once you've matched them and you've got your friends there, it's easy enough to just say like, hey. There's some whacked out ballot initiative that happens to have come up, in your county, and like, don't forget, or whatever else, and so, I think in terms of, the parties, there are people in the parties who are not enthusiastic about a ton of new people, voting in primaries. And so the idea would be that this would, there'd be a bigger group of disciplined voters that would vote because they've got a friend telling them about doing it. The other thing I'd say is that we're nonpartisan. We're zero budget, so we're not nonpartisan in order to more effectively get nonprofit C3 money that rich people can use as a tax write-off.
Right.
We're nonpartisan because people are much more likely to get their friends to vote, more comfortable doing it if they say they don't want to politicize their friendships. And it's also a long-term relationship, so it's like trying to motivate people. Like, people are not motivated by candidates to vote, and they shouldn't be motivated by candidates to vote. They should just vote every single time, and for whichever is the best candidate, whichever they like, or the least bad candidate, or whoever they want. It doesn't really matter.
Harm reduction
turn
policy.
Yeah. Now, I mean, and there's nothing wrong with campaigning, but in terms of getting people excited about voting, it's much better to just concentrate on the voting and not on the other stuff.
No, I agree completely. It's the reason why Vote from Abroad exists. It's the idea that it's a fundamental right. It's necessary. We should be participating in it. We are all estadounidense. And if you start getting into the nitty-gritty politics of it, there's more cause for disagreement, which can then be like, well, then it could lead to fractures and issues. So if you just completely focus on the practice of voting and participating in the democracy in general, I think it's a smart and brilliant way to go. Absolutely.
Yeah, and even with issues too. I mean, there's issues that we care about, like voting rights, voting access, things like that, and we care very, very deeply about that. But if you look at, for any of the political parties or even independents, if you look at the Venn diagrams of, who cares about what, whether it's about a gun policy or about body autonomy or anything else, there's an enormous overlap for any of those things, and like, why can't everybody knows how they feel about those things? Those are important side discussions, right. Not to just let's just concentrate on voting. Let's just get that done.
I agree. I think that's why I've been going to all these colleges and running these voter registration events in a nonpartisan fashion, because it's the best possible way to do it. We don't have to agree on any particular issue or every particular issue, but we do agree that voting's your right, and I'm going to help you register to vote and make sure it happens. I love the captain's model so much, because you're absolutely right that someone like me is going to harass my 10 best friends. Did you vote yet? Did you register to vote? Did you get your FPCA in? Did you get your ballot?
Well, that's, and so we're really focused on, the sort of captains and organizers. That's the group that we care about. We don't really worry about the voters, because the kind of voters that we're trying to reach are the occasional or never voters, right? And you can barrage them with all the text messages and ads and everything else you want, and it won't matter. Sure. What will matter is if their friends talk to them. And, a lot of times people say, like, well, what are the incentives? How do you get people to do that? And there's definitely 10% of the people who will get their friends to vote. 10% of the population will say, yeah, sure, I'll get my friends to vote. Like, they've got one step of, matching them to the voter file. And then after that, I mean, it's very, very easy. And then there's, people like us who are really, really preoccupied with what's going on in the United States and American democracy, and that's the sort of the organizers, the one who will recruit captains and then get them to do that. And I think one of the things that the Turnout Nation was born from is the fact that, because in the U.S. people tend to sort of think of elections in general as candidate campaigns, right now, in an odd year, there are millions and maybe tens of millions of people who want to do something for American democracy. We're just waiting around, like, they get the odd, text message saying work on this thing, or here's some candidate, or, that happened to buy your contact information. But, like, in terms of where they can direct their time and efforts, to build a long-term solution to this problem, there's not many answers for that, and we want to be that answer.
One of those things you mentioned was there are different ways of differentiating things. In fact, I think you said there were 8 of them.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little? Can we throw some of those out?
Yeah, for sure. I would say all volunteers. We're nonpartisan. We focus on the organizers and captains, and I would say that the fourth thing is that's very different with us is that we don't communicate with voters. So we match them to the voter file for the captains. Then we get rid of their information. We don't use their information. We don't sell it. We don't call them. We don't, whatever else. And I think particularly for campaigns, a lot of, people talk a lot about relational organizing. A lot of apps will have a sort of little relational organizing widget so that some volunteer says, okay, oh, should I get my friends to vote? Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
Upload your contact list, and then it's like, then they have 400 contacts that they sell on and barrage with text messages and whatever else.
Okay.
We don't do that. So that if a captain just maybe joins up and then doesn't do anything, those voters are not, contacted by us, because we feel that's respectful to the captain relationship, that we don't talk to their voters, they talk to their voters.
I completely agree.
Right. And that's very, very different from, the methodology of the campaign industrial complex, which is get your data, and then, we've got the best, who's got the best data, blah, blah, blah. And then, like we say, focus in on this micro demographic, and then we hit them through this creative new conduit. And then, we hope that we get 0.4% of them to whatever. And we're not broadcast. We're based on real relationships.
You're completely right. Because how overwhelming my email was before the election?
Oh, yeah.
How many hundreds of emails that I got that I didn't even look at let's call it 2% of, because I knew what I was doing, and that doesn't get me, if sending me a bunch of spam doesn't get me motivated to vote, I am super political, I can't imagine how it just goes right over the heads of everyone else on earth.
It probably pisses people off too.
I'm sure.
Consistently barrage.
How many text messages, how many emails you get all the time, whereas your good friend you're going out to drinks with on Friday is going to mention, oh, I better get my absentee ballot request in because Rob's going to bust my balls when we go drinking.
Does it?
Yeah.
It really does fall onto the hands and to the shoulders of the captain then.
Yeah,
to
all of
make
it.
this
Absolutely.
happen.
I love that.
And it's also, we're big on the magic number 10. And this has been illustrated by our work, but also, a bunch of social science nerds who figured this stuff out.
Okay.
Which is that 10 is the number of people that you can, the average person can sort of deal with, and so, you get 20, and it's like some are going to go by the wayside, and you're just, people get overwhelmed, and that's just too much. It's just a lot. 5, you're leaving some votes on the table. People can deal with more than 5 people, right? And so it's just like, it's just your 10 friends. You want to be a gold star captain, gets all 10 of their friends to vote, and that's and that's what we're working for. So we're very, very attached to, to that being the right number. Now, we found that around, on average, 1.7, 1.8% out of the voters that the captains enroll say, hey, what is this thing you're doing? Like, why and stuff like that? I want to be a captain. And so, then they can become captains and get other friends to vote. And that's it's better to do it that way rather than, just giving yourselves a number that's bigger than you could manage.
Right, because it's only so much, but it's very helpful to say, I did my part, and you can prove that this captain has done their part.
Right.
So there's we're actually fulfilling each other's, goals together. It's more unifying. It's more of a group thing. I think it's a very compelling way to do that. And you've been featured in Scientific America, Vox Media, the American.
Yes, the American, for the Spanish speakers, yes.
Was that more in relation to your methodology of pairing the voting roles? Was that in terms of your general organizational philosophy? What types of things were you discussing with these outlets?
Well, lots of different things. And I think what sort of the thing that we're best known for is that we have the highest voter turnout effect ever tested by a lot, but by randomized control trial. And you'll notice that if you look at sort of organizations or people when they're talking about what they've achieved, they say, oh, we knocked on 872 doors, or we sent 5,600 text messages, or we had 86 quadrillion conversations or something like that. Sure. And so we're really into relational. We had these conversations, and they have an app, and they tell somebody, okay, this candidate, and go talk to your friend about this candidate, and then note it down in the app, and we'll measure it. And that's silly and not how things work. What we want is we want net voters. Yep. We want people that voted because of something we did that we can prove that. All right. And the number of text messages and conversations sent out is really not so important. And so we're very, very focused on randomized control trials, and that's the only thing that can really test anything, and we can test net voters. and we've gotten 13.2%.
I saw those stats. 13.2% actually.
Yes, yes,
That's incredible.
And we've gotten, and in with some subsets, we've gotten close to 20%, and we think we can beat that. Now we've been, focusing on different recruitment methods and things like that,
Right, to expand, absolutely.
Right, but so but so I think that the reason we got the attention is just because this is so astronomically effective in terms of turnout effect.
It is,
Now what we
because no one else can prove it. You're totally right.
Right.
No one else, like, if you go to a concert, a voter registration event concert with, some pop star or something, and they register a bunch of people to vote, great. There's no way to tell any of them, any
If
of those
they
people have
actually
ever voted.
voted.
There's no way to tell your Facebook likes
wait
filled
a
message
minute.
got people to vote.
Turnout Nation then does show you. I mean,
Yeah, so the way
control trial.
I'll tell you exactly how it works.
Yeah,
So
please.
what we do is we say, the way that we do the trials is we say, okay, you get 10 people to vote, all right, but put in 15 friends that you could get to vote. I mean, and friends, family members, coworkers, classmates, people in your congregation,
Acquaintances,
whatever. Like anyway, well, I mean, it can, it should be people reasonably well.
Oh, fair, fair.
But from from some, that you know well enough that you can say, hey, I want to, get you to vote or whatever. You put in 15 contacts, and then randomly you do that in an app that has the sort of voter file behind it, so that you can match them, which is what takes a little while with names, spelling, and addresses. And if you know somebody named Susan Smith, it's a little complicated to find them, particularly if you're in California or something. So, and so what we do is we say, all right, randomly, now get these 10 to vote. So now we have, it's just like a drug trial. Like you get whatever 3,000 people, and you get 1,500 that take some medicine that supposedly fixes a condition. 1,500 that takes a sugar pill, and then you see if it works.
Sure.
Right. So, but it's very important that they be completely randomly differentiated. You can't do old and young or men and women. It has to be two statistically identical groups.
Right, that's the scientific method. Yeah, right.
Exactly. So we do that with the people, the contacts that the captains choose, and then we say, all right. So we've got 5 of them will be in the control group, and the captain will not be working with any captain, and then 10 of them will be working with their friend, the captain. And then we measure the difference, and we've gotten 0.2%. Thank you very much.
Don't undersell yourself.
Yeah, they were really nice
Honestly,
people. Those 0.2%.
This Influence Watch said it's this 13.2, but if accurate, is quite significant as one of the biggest voter mobilization efforts, and it may be very good to look at the methodology of those trials that was run through an AI program that told me that this morning.
Well, it's
Well,
So-
the person who oversees it is a guy named Don Green, who wrote the
Shout
book
out.
"Get Out the Vote," he's done more randomized control trials on voter turnout than everybody else in the world combined. He's
Okay.
at Columbia. He's like anyone in voter turnout, knows who he is, and he's very serious. And that's what he said.
Yeah,
He's the
that's
one who
his
wrote
thing.
the Scientific American article.
Got you.
And so all of that is enabled by matching to the voter file. Now, the campaign industrial complex would never do that because, number one, it's a lot of work. Like
Sure.
it's really, really difficult to do. And they're based on sort of, I think of it as kind of dashboard campaigning, right? They got the dashboard, they're turning the knobs on the demographics and the who texting and the door knocking and the whatever, right? They sort of sit there
They're
and
DJ,
and they kind of they're like and then they send out all stuff. Whereas voter file matching, you really got to it takes work. It also you wouldn't necessarily do it. I mean, you could do it in service of a candidate, but it doesn't really work well for candidate campaigns because people don't know their congressional district because most of them are crazily gerrymandered and they have no idea which one. They're changing pretty quickly and whatever else. And so this is really just, you just get your friends within one state, and then it sort of gives the control to the voter rather than to whoever's running the campaign. But it allows for randomized controlled trials, and that's important.
I think it's critical. You're right. Without this, we don't have a single credible metric to show you who showed up, why, what, and where. We have a lot of people that'll give you a good sales pitch, on why. But if you're not actually using randomized control trials, and you're not actually using voter file data, and you're not actually linking the work to the turnout,
Right.
it's not really something you can say with certainty, whereas this is the clearest possible version of this vision that I've heard.
And we also don't even know until months and months later who actually voted, how many people actually.
Which
It
year?
took forever,
Yeah.
and ever, and ever to find that information out.
Well, I think the way I think of it is this is the captain model is voter centric, right? It empowers people who care about democracy and want to do something useful in the long term throughout the year, right?
And relationships.
Right. Whereas, I kind of think about the people from Manhattan who every sort of 4 years head down to North Philadelphia and knock on some doors and have a highly enriching experience, and
Sure.
go back home and talk about it. And, the correct response for the person who gets their door knocked on is,
Gotta know.
oh, you again. Like, oh, and so.
Hi, stranger.
Yeah, how are things going? So you need us to turn out again, do you? And the whole thing is very, it's very, like,
Impersonal.
It's impersonal, but it's like it sort of mirrors, the sort of capitalist system of that. Like, I care about you for the transaction. That's what I care about. Like,
Which
what I need is
very off-putting.
which is like, I need your vote, and I don't, and the rest of it is like, the campaign the day after the election,
Good point.
gone, disappears, like, just over.
That's what people complain about with the Democratic Party, that you just show up when you, I want my vote, and then you chwakata and you leave.
Right.
Whereas this model, it builds on existing relationships and has proven actual data that works to show that those relationships, building on those relationships, is what gets people to vote. Similar to like a souls to the polls kind of thing, or like
Yeah, absolutely.
That'll
But
never happen again.
well, one of the difficulties of souls to the polls is like there's not a lot of young people going to to church these days, and stuff like that. And so
young people love Jesus.
And so I think our just like our I don't know how to describe it. Like, I don't know whether I'd say, vision sounds kind of dramatic, but our mission is wide adoption of the captain method by organizations and communities, but not organizations like, with a staff and some deep pocket funding them, but organizations that people really feel that they are a member of, that, and that can be a very small, it's probably geographically specific. It can be, a chapter of a labor union. It can be a book club. It can be a weekend soccer team.
Right.
It can be a significant extended family that meets every Sunday. Like, it can be a church or a mosque or a synagogue or whatever. Like, and so almost everybody is or should be in a community. And even if it's a digital community or like a collection of gamers who do all sorts of whacked out stuff on Twitch or whatever.
Sure.
Like, that's fine. They may and
Just don't take the black pill, but
yeah, exactly, right. So it's like, it's just whoever your community is. What we want is for every community, non-political community, just regular community, to say, yeah, sure, we can be captains, we can get a bunch of people to vote, and have that be a normal part of what they do. It's very easy. And it will get a bunch of people.
Care factor, relationships, concrete action. Would you say that's kind of your vision for the organization, or how would you articulate your vision for this
personal
organization?
wild dream.
The vision.
The vision is just that every single organization, and more important than that, or maybe a more accurate term, is every community in the United States, that every person who cares a lot about democracy. It doesn't forget about the swing states. I'm so sick of hearing about the swing states. We care about Connecticut. We care about Oklahoma. We care about voters in those, in those states, right? And so that everybody says, okay, I'm going to, in an organized, methodical way.
That's right.
I'm going to get I'm going to get my people to be captains and get a bunch of people to vote. We will measure how many we have gotten to vote. We will be able to tell at the end of this, my 14 people who are in my book club, we will be able to know precisely how many people we got to vote who would not have voted otherwise. All right, and that's a thing that we can do. And I think every organization, they don't have to do it, but they ought to at least know that this method exists and that they could do that, and that it would have a positive role in U.S. democracy.
How can people sign up for Turn On Nation, sir?
Go to our website. Send us an email.
TurnOnNation.org.
TurnOutNation.org. We're on a bunch of social media. DM. Say my name is Mark. Say I heard Mark. I want to do this. It doesn't matter where in the world you are. I'm the founder and run this organization, and
You can
and
set
I'm
them
6
up.
time zones away from the U.S. East Coast, and we would absolutely love to have you.
One final question. You have a magic wand. Let's talk crazy. What's the wildest thing you would love to see happen?
Funny you should mention that.
Okay.
Because with, speaking to a bunch of people abroad, and I'm guessing a bunch of your listeners are,
Oh, yeah.
the crazy whacked out dream
Okay.
would be to do a massive randomized control trial of voters and captains abroad.
Okay.
It's quite complicated, and as we know, because U.S. elections are run through candidate campaigns don't pay attention to voters abroad because of the way they're run. It's pointless for them to do that. I mean, at the very most, the most I've ever seen, was Beto's Senate campaign had a website saying, we care about voters abroad. Here's a little policy thing. And they had an intern saying, people abroad should vote. That was about it. But I mean, in terms of resources, there's no way that it will survive the cost-benefit analysis of how U.S. campaigns are run.
Right. Yeah. Because this
But-
has to be, volunteers all.
It's not, you can't, it's just that there's an incompatibility between, Americans abroad and the campaign industrial system, right? However, there's a bunch of us, many millions of us.
Yes.
We have incredibly low turnout not because we don't care about politics, and not because we don't care about American democracy, and not because we're not the fastest growing demographic of U.S. voters, but it's tough to vote from abroad, and some states
It
are
is.
making it tougher.
New York, please.
And so it's really, it's really, and it takes, and this is really where the captain method could shine.
Yes.
States that make it kind of complicated to do that. So if we were going to do a randomized control trial, we need to have the national voter file, which is difficult, and we would need to have a very large number, probably something like 500 people to act as captains. We'd need something like 60 or 70 people to act as organizers, each taking care of some of the captains. And they would have to commit to that like soon, within the next month or two, for us to be able to get all of the voter files. Because the voter files, our method depends on having the voter files, and in some states they're incredibly difficult to get, so we'd have to do that through a consolidator, and it would be quite complicated. However, if we did it, the question is not, would the trial be successful? If we do the trial, particularly among U.S. citizens abroad, it would be so crazily mind-blowing. It would be such an international news event that it would transform how people abroad
Campaigns
are considered,
are
and how
Absolutely.
and how campaigns would deal with them,
Absolutely.
because it would have an astronomical turnout effect, and people would realize that by ignoring this group, it's really causing problems. And so
15 million people.
yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, nobody really knows.
Right,
Like,
it is fluctuates,
so like
but
that.
it's millions.
All we know
We
is
know it's millions.
All we know is it's millions, and
Millions
with
and millions.
with a turnout effect that we've already illustrated.
Right.
Right.
All right. Even that one, which we think we can beat very easily, with that turnout effect, like if it was done among 20%, of Americans abroad, if we had a 10% turnout effect,
Oh, hell yeah.
that's decisive in many states.
You've sold me. I
So,
love it.
right. So,
love it.
I mean, I don't if anybody is interested and would like to spearhead that, again, talk to us. Mark@turnoutnation.org.
Thank you so much, man. Really great talking to you. Really
the
great
email.
information.
That's the email.
Okay, Mark with a K.
Mark with a K.
Mark with a K at turnoutnation.org. And of course, you can sign up also Instagram and all this good stuff as well. Turnout Nation. Thank you so much for being here.
Mark, thanks a lot, man.
We're going to
pleasure.
throw this on Al Gore's interwebs again. And folks, we're going to do a little bit of a segment break here, and we'll be right back. This is Tori Sparks with Everybody Knows, yet another voter from abroad. We'll be right back.
Yeah.
Everybody knows that the dice are loaded. Everybody rolls with their fingers crossed. Everybody knows the war is over. Everybody knows the good guys lost. Everybody knows that the fight was fixed. The poor stay poor, the rich get rich. That's how it goes. And Everybody knows. Everybody knows that the boat is leaking. Everybody knows that the captain lied. Everybody got this broken feeling, like the father or the dog just died. Everybody talking to their pockets. Everybody wants a box of chocolates and a long stem rose. Everybody knows. Everybody knows that you love me, baby. Everybody knows that you really do. Everybody knows that you've been faithful, or give or take a night or two. Everybody knows that you've been discreet. There were so many people you just had to meet without your clothes. And everybody knows. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. That's how things go. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. Everybody knows. That's how things go. Everybody knows. Everybody knows that it's now or never. Everybody knows that it's me or never.
Always shout out to the queen of rock and roll fusion flamenco. That's Tori Sparks there, doing Leonard Cohen's Everybody Knows. Thank you, Mark Millen of Turnout Nation. Remember, everybody, from the first segment, turnoutnation.org. If you are an expat or immigrant abroad from the United States, this is a
Game changer.
And
Absolute
it needs to
game
happen.
changer. We have close-knit communities of Americans abroad,
Straight up.
relationships building that we're not using, and like you get me calling you, you're gonna do what you're gonna register to vote. You're gonna because you want to make sure that you are registered to vote, you have requested your absentee ballot, and you can vote in your states. The voter files are up to date. It's critical. This is the kind of thing that helps. And vote from abroad is so critical in helping you make sure you request your absentee ballot, make sure your voter registration is up to date.
Yes,
Use
Lord.
both. Also, look at the nonpartisan, completely unaffiliated Turnout Nation because they're doing really great work, and I'm gonna try to see if I can help because it's critical.
I mean, we can definitely. I know. I've got 10 American friends here.
I do too.
I
and-
will totally. But the thing is,
100%.
I already know that at least one of them will spin off to want to be a captain.
Good.
For
Fantastic.
example, Victoria, looking at you, baby girl. Now,
And
we have
voting.
not been here for a few
Yeah.
months. I mean, not in the studio since
We have
June.
not been for a while, yes. We've been doing our
3
own
months,
thing.
dude. Shit.
Yeah, probably
Yes,
since
and
June.
Remember, folks, we also want you to know, I want to give a mad shout out to everybody that's blowing up our little Blue Sky. In the last week and a half, we've blown up to nearly 200 people out of nowhere. So thank you very much.
Blue Sky, we love you.
Yes, we do. That's The Way Shit Works at Blue Sky. We also, The Way Shit Works now, rather, at Instagram. And The Way Ish Works at YouTube. We want all of you, because we are helping build an expat escapology independent media spectrum, children.
Sorry to interrupt you there, brother.
No, por favor.
And we have a brand new Substack.
Oh, chinga madre. Sorry. Yes, we do. Yeah, I do have Chicano roots.
So we've
Right.
had conversations a lot over these past couple of months, and we've put out content, and it's been very interesting to see the evolution for the past 3 months because it feels like 3 years. 3 months feels like 3
Every
years
day
now.
feels like a week.
The passage of time is just incredible. But the thing that I think we should talk about and break down immediately is an insane assassination of Charlie Kirk and
It
the
was
blowback.
sick. It was insane.
A disgusting, unacceptable outcome. Charlie Kirk is somebody that I do not like.
To a
And-
disgusting, unacceptable person.
Right. But it's not an acceptable thing
It's disgusting.
to to engage in violence in the streets, to engage in assassinations. It is completely and utterly unacceptable, must be condemned in every single level, which,
Hallelujah.
thank God, we on our side are doing.
That's bloody right.
Aside from some freaks on the internet who have no affiliation and don't care about anything, every single person that I consider an ideological ally has forcefully condemned this unacceptable, ridiculous assassination that never should have happened.
It was the thing that really, the babies were in front of him. His babies, man.
Can't do it.
That
Can't
is
be
the
accepted.
worst for me. I do believe.
Traumatized family, traumatized people, risking all sorts of lives for what ends? To make a martyr out of people? It can't happen. This is the destruction of the fabric of society stuff that cannot be allowed to be accepted ever. And as long as forceful condemnations come with that and attempts at taking down the temperature, we can get past this and we can make a world where this isn't necessary. This isn't sorry, not necessary, because it's not. We have laws, we have courts, you can protest in the streets. There's no world where is it acceptable to assassinate your political rivals. Never acceptable, never necessary in this situation at all. I'm really happy that you and I have been forcefully condemning it, but we are also, having said that, very disgusted with the clamping down on your free speech rights to talk about the man himself, his life, his words, his quotes.
Charlie Kirk Day?
Firing people for quoting the man directly.
And this is a big thing because there are going to be, from the Jimmy Kimmel camp, there are going to be lawsuits coming out from their camp.
As there should be.
They're already being formulated.
As there
I can
should
tell
be.
you, they're already being formulated.
The unhinged reactions that I'm seeing to this disgraceful, unacceptable assassination are coming from the politicians and media people that are saying, we're at war.
There were a lot of TikTok moms, you animals. There's this thing.
The President of the United States.
But this is the thing. The President of the United States consistently refers to his opposing centrist liberal parties as scum, as vermin, as animal, as brown people infecting the blood of our... And so when you do that, you are debasing the humans. And this is why when I heard so many people, again, randomly saying, this is not who America is. This is not... And I really do want to say, unfortunately, this is what America is. And if we go back to 1963... from looking at Kennedy to looking at MLK to looking at Kennedy this is part of our part and parcel, unfortunately.
There is absolutely a culture of minimizing violence in the United States of America when little babies get shot up in schools and the news cycle has moved on after a day and a half.
That same day.
Same day, yeah. Same day.
Within the hour.
Every week.
In Colorado.
Every week this happens.
There was a shooting. None of the babies died, but 6 days before,
but I think
there had been the kids that were killed in the church.
You know,
on top of everything.
In Minnesota, we had assassinations of I believe the Speaker of the House of Minnesota and her husband and dog. This is something that needs to be. This is something that needs to be clamped down on in general. The violent rhetoric needs to be stopped. And I hate to say it because it's true and it's a shitty time to have to say it, but the President of the United States is the number one source of violent political rhetoric on earth.
Culprit number one.
Number one, the man who pardoned on day one, January 6th, terrorists.
1,000 of them.
Who hospitalized hundreds of cops, who dozens of them were convicted of a seditious conspiracy.
And then got convicted again because scores of them have already been taken back.
New crimes.
Some of them are dead, actually.
Yep, because they got into shootouts with police.
Cierto. Exactly.
Also, some of them were child porn enthusiasts because he did a blanket pardon of every one of his great patriots. So this falls on the President of the United States to be a leader, to take down the temperature, but he's incapable of doing it.
It's not going to happen.
He's incapable of doing it. I'm happy to belong to a party that universally across the board has condemned this political violence and has gone out of their way to attempt to bring down the temperature. Because we are normal people. We are not radicalized monsters who view everything as a violent attack, who view the violent policies of the U.S. government as something to be used as a tool. We don't view, we're not some people that laugh at immigrants being eaten by alligators in Florida.
Or Paul Pelosi being bludgeoned.
This president's son was dressing up in underwear with a hammer for Halloween. A week before Charlie Kirk was unjustifiably murdered, the President of the United States was sharing jokes, still mocking that.
Correct.
Charlie Kirk himself was trying to get the man who attempted to murder Nancy Pelosi's husband and Nancy Pelosi, tried to tell his followers that some great patriot should get this guy bailed out to ask him some questions. We have to tell the truth, but we also have to tell the facts of the matter that violence in politics is unacceptable, and it can't ever be condoned or minimized.
And if I may add, this violence and all this shite that has happened, we saw how the President of the United States referred to it the following morning. 16 hours later, he was asked on the tarmac as he was about to get into that fucking helicopter, "How are you doing?" Someone seriously asked, a man of empathy asked, "How are you doing?
Your friend was murdered.
How do you feel about that?" And he said, "Well, I think okay." He said, "I think okay. I think okay."
By the way,
and if you look over here, we've got the $200 million complex, this eyesore of gold that we're doing. They've run it for 150 years, this ballroom. And that was his thing. Now, this is what Jimmy Kimmel, who was the number 2 rated, it was Colbert who's been fired. Well, he's going to be there till next June, so hold up. And Jimmy Kimmel was indefinitely suspended from ABC, who has also been paying out the Trump administration to the tune of whatever millions because
there was, if you remember George Stephanopoulos, the frivolous lawsuit that the President of the United States filed against ABC. They settled a completely unwinnable frivolous lawsuit with millions of dollars, which I, in my opinion, think is a bribe. Then ABC now, without much of a care in the world, aside from their merger plans.
This is what I want to talk about, if I may. Aside
Please.
from that, the Kimmel drama, he did not say anything untoward about Charlie Kirk.
Never did.
He did not.
Go look at his exact. Don't look at edited clips. Don't look at 5 seconds. Go watch everything he said and make your own decision. I'm telling you right now, I did, and he did not.
And if I may, he said specifically something about, he just showed the president's words and was fired for this reason. Now, okay, indefinitely suspended. Now, one thing that is happening and has been growing up, apparently, Disney is siphoning users and subscribers to Disney Plus, and actually, Marvel actors are coming out now saying that we need to boycott Disney. So as of this morning, I don't know if anyone follows Park Rose Promenade or something like that, but she's a fantastic lady on YouTube. They're siphoning scores of thousands already overnight, but all of this was because there is a balance in the hanging. Okay, all major corporations of entertainment broadcasting that make mergers have to be approved by the current administration, whichever administration is in the White House at that time. Obviously, that's this piece of shit. Now,
horrible
Nexstar and Sinclair. Now, Sinclair Media is the smaller organizations like WBNY or whatever. Those little local stations are owned, radio and TV stations are owned by Sinclair Media. Yeah. And this broadcast merger was going to be to the tune of I don't know how many billions, I forget the billion, excuse me. Sure. With another company called Nexstar. Now, they would not be approved, and this is what Trump did, unless Disney did something against this guy.
Trump's own FCC director, days before, was broadcasting their plan to go after these types of people, to censor these types of people. What we are seeing is...
First Amendment, everybody.
What we are literally seeing in the post-Charlie Kirk assassination, again, completely unacceptable, never a thing that should be condoned, is full-blown U.S. government-pushed censorship.
Yeah.
A complete and total First Amendment violation on behalf of the U.S. government on private corporations pushing out the U.S. government's agenda. It's unacceptable. It can't be accepted. This is a fundamental constitutional right for Americans. It's a different kind of thing in different kind of countries, but you're allowed to make shitty jokes. You're allowed to say a horrible person was a horrible person. It's in bad taste.
Yep.
I would not recommend it. But you are allowed, under your First Amendment rights in the United States of America, to quote somebody's horrible quotes. And if the U.S. government is pushing your company to fire you over it, they're celebrating that they're getting people fired over quoting a man who they say you shouldn't. None of them are quoting him.
Well, you've been speaking. I was looking something up because there was an interesting New York Times article that was printed in February 4th of 1939.
Oh, my God.
Okay. And the New York Times article talks about Goebbels has ended the career of 5 Aryan actors who were making jokes and witticisms about the Nazi regime.
Jeez.
And this is what is happening now. So this was reported in 1939, okay? So it's walking 84 years ago, and we're repeating this. Now, we talk about, especially coming back from the history aspect, I don't say it repeats itself, but it certainly has a pattern. Yes,
it rhymes. History rhymes. Mm-hmm. I want to be very clear about something. If an administration is using an authoritarian dictatorship playbook,
Yep.
it is not
they are.
incitement. They without a doubt are. It is not incitement to violence or anything of that nature to call them out on it.
No.
Very disingenuously.
That's the First Amendment, mother.
But also, that is not incitement to violence. Saying that immigrants are poisoning the blood of our nation and pardoning January 6th terrorists are
Would incite
incitements to violence.
weak-minded
These
mother effers.
false comparisons, these false paradigms that are being pushed in bad faith by the type of people getting people fired for practicing their First Amendment rights now are unacceptable. I believe the Republican Party needs to take a look internally.
They won't.
They need to look in the mirror, because what they are contributing to and have been contributing to in their media forms, in their government forms, in their proposed legislation is absolutely disgraceful. The culture and the temperature needs to be taken down in the United States of America right now. Horrible, horrible things are happening that need to be addressed and need to be calmed down. And you're not going to calm that down with violent, inflaming, dehumanizing political rhetoric about innocent people. Not the same thing as saying, this policy, that policy, that policy. Well, also, fascists did these policies. These are not the same things that cannot be compared.
Also, there is this element where I think it's very, very, very important that as we march to the hopeful elections that are coming about, let us not forget,
hopefully,
that if these things continue, we're coming after Fox News. And we're coming after
Boycotts.
all of it. It's gonna and you know who said this? Swalwell said this.
Oh, you mean investigations about?
We're
yeah,
coming.
absolutely.
Yeah, and just don't think that we can't turn the tides, because when they take the House, if they take the House, inshallah that they take the House,
We're going to work our asses
it's
off to make sure they
done.
do.
It is done. And now, like I said before on the things when we first started recording after the summer, there's a chance that the Senate's going to be taken over. So really quickly, we've got to talk about this because they want us out of here in just a
Absolutely.
minute. But please,
let's get out of
children
here.
the
I
cord.
think it's a very important point. I just started reading this incredible book called How Tyrants Fall. And I'm addicted to it already.
Why,
It talks
puppy?
about an
Why?
entire history of autocratic regimes, the errors that they've made, the failures that they've engaged in, and how and why they've fallen throughout history, applicably now to our modern surveillance state.
Does it
Read
starting with
again.
the Roman Empire? Does it talk about it?
There are
I mean,
allusions to the Roman Empire, but the
Certo.
fact of the matter is, it's more often it's more modern,
Okay.
and the stories are more modern tales from around Europe and around the. Excuse me, it is more of a modern book, but it has historical examples as well.
And also the little subtitle here: How Tyrants Fall and How Nations Survive.
Critical,
Yeah,
absolutely critical
that's
reading.
the critical thing. And again, that's not what we're trying. That's what we are doing and implementing here, and a little expat escapology moment here. And that's what The Way Shit Works, because that's how The Way Shit Works now, folks. Remember, you can follow us at The Way Shit Works on Blue Sky, The Way Shit Works on Instagram, and The Way Ish, ISH, Works on YouTube, because censorship is not fun. But Power to the People, this is Pod 9, folks. In fact, we are titling this little baby right here called The Autocracy of Dungeons and Backlash Brothers. Now, your Backlash Brothers are here to serve up and to slay. Remember, this is a all triot, they triot, gay triot, black and brown triot specials. This is what we want to be serving up for everybody, because we were all included in this. And folks, remember, another shout out to Mark Mullen, truthoutnation.org.
Thanks
Sign
again.
up.
Adios.
Power to the People. Ciao, ciao.
Everybody knows that the dice are loaded. Everybody rolls with their fingers crossed. Everybody knows the war is over. Everybody knows the good guys lost. Everybody knows that the fight was fixed. The poor stay poor, the rich get rich. That's how it goes. And everybody knows. Everybody knows that the boat is leaking. Everybody knows that the captain lied. Everybody got this broken feeling, like their father or the dog just died. Everybody talking to their pockets. Everybody wants a box of chocolates and a long stem rose. And everybody knows. Everybody knows that you love me, baby. Everybody knows that